Okay, Anais, this is the second part of this series about Kalachakra. Now, in the first series, now we got to the point where I was talking about Kalachakra. I got to that by kind of a roundabout way, which was to say that Hinduism has reformed under the influence of Western-influenced philosophers and Western-educated holy men. All over India, you had the same phenomenon. You had Rabindranath Tagore, people like Yogananda, people like Mahatma Gandhi, people like Aurobindo. During the English Empire, these people developed, they had Western educations, and they influenced the people of their time. But they were bringing the Western ideas, and they were creating a form of Hinduism, which was not the traditional form of Hinduism. This was a Westernized form of Hinduism. And one of the strongest influences of these people were these Russian people. You had Nicholas Roerich, who was living up in Kulu Manali, and you had there were two generations of Roerich, and they were theosophists, and Roerich involved in Kalachakra. He wrote a book about Kalachakra. It was called Shambhala, Kingdom of Shambhala. And he took a lot of the ideas which came from Blavatsky. Blavatsky was this Russian lady who had studied with the Mongolian lamas. And the Mongol lamas had the Kalachakra teaching. So these people were influenced, like Aurobindo, and these people were influenced by Westerners, and among them this Russian lady, but also people in the theosophy groups were English people and whatever. And they were responsible for reintroducing Buddhism into Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka Buddhism had disappeared. So you see, these people were Western influenced scholars or Westerners themselves, like Blavatsky, and they actually recreated extinct Oriental religions like Sri Lankan Buddhism, which they just imagined. You know, these were armchair Buddhists. These were not Buddhists themselves. These were actually Western people who had these were colonialists, and so these people had a lot of time on their hands, a lot of slaves, and they wrote a lot of books, and they invented forms of Hinduism, forms of Buddhism, which only existed in their minds, and they're not the original things. But about Kalachakra, Blavatsky got teachings from this Mongol teacher, and so she had some ideas about Kalachakra. But that's still a diversion. Now, what I want to say is that these people were influenced by Buddhism, by something in Buddhism. And people like Aurobindo, they created a Hinduism which was a mix, and it's well known that Mahatma Gandhi was a mix of his own religion, which was Jainism, and Buddhism, and Hinduism. His influence is very strongly influenced by these, and so they would have a brand of Hinduism which was very close to Buddhism. But it wasn't Buddhism which was compatible with these people. It was these forms of Hinduism which were going to be compatible with Buddhism. That's the way it went, not the opposite ways. It's not, you can't integrate Buddhism into Hinduism and say Buddhism is part of us. Buddhism is basically against Hinduism. What I wanted to say is, I want to get to human sacrifice. Now these people, Aurobindo and everything, they whitewashed Hinduism throughout India, so that human sacrifice or animal sacrifice practically is not very current in India. But they still have sacrifice going on. They have sacrifice going on. You see the tantric babas in Hardwar and all over India and Benares and everything, you know, there's all kinds of sacrifice going on. It may not be publicly known, but and then if you go to countries like Nepal, which was never invaded by the English, the Hinduism there is a bloody sacrificing Hinduism. In Pashupatinath in Nepal, when the Kali festival is on, this is just the whole place is just red with blood. And they sacrifice animals all along the roads at every roundabout. At the roundabout in front of the royal palace, there's a roundabout. You see these chickens with the heads cut off, and they want to make it as bloody as possible. So this is a thing which is fundamentally rejected and contrary to Buddhism. Buddhism rejects the bloody sacrifice, and Buddhists are not going to. It's not negotiable. This is a thing that Hindus can't get their heads around, because the Hindus want to be good and want to atone for their sins and everything, and they want to make up. And the Hindus can't. They have this problem that there's something which they can't control, and they don't know what it's about. They're ignorant. They don't want to study. The Hindus want to be Buddhists, but they don't want to study. They don't. They want something, but they don't want to pay the price for it. I mean, if you study Buddhism, then you study what Buddhism is about. And if Buddhism says it's against caste, for the Hindus, they just can't swallow it. Buddhism is a thing that Hindus can't swallow. And if you say that God does not exist, they can't swallow that. You say, you Hindus do bloody sacrifice, so you're sinners, you go to hell. The Hindus just can't swallow that. Their religion is always saying that they're going to heaven if they do the ritual practice and the Hindu practice and everything, and they wash 7 times a day. Washing 7 times a day is not going to clean your... It's inside you have to clean out, not outside. But Hindus can't understand this. We say in Buddhism, we call our Buddhist Nangpa. Nangpa means inwards. And Hindus, we call Chipa, outwards. And the meaning is, they are outwardly pure. Outside the skin, they're pure. Nangpa is inside, we're inside pure. It's the difference between Buddhism and Hinduism. Buddhism cleans your inside. Hinduism cleans your outside. Now, you people are going to get very mad at all this. So I said to you, I don't want to make this video. So why don't we move on to Kalachakra now? Because I've done Hinduism. Let's move on to let's start hitting on somebody else, which is what I'll do when I'm going to talk about Kalachakra. So I'm at the end now, so I'm going to. So the third one will be all about Kalachakra. There was a Mongol. We're in the 13th century, okay, 13th century, so 1250, and Tibetan Buddhism had developed into various schools, and there was conflict between various lamas for getting the Mongol patronage, because the Mongols would kill people they had to kill who would oppose them, but whatever holy person they encountered, the Mongols wanted to get their blessings, whether it was shamanic or Buddhist or later on, after the 13th century, they started meeting the Muslims and going to the Muslim countries which they invaded, and then they'd also solicit the Muslim masters to be there. The Mongols were very religious people, very, let's say, well, they inclined towards the religious, and they would live with the shamans and the teachers with them. In their court, they'd have their court with they'd live with them. So Kalachakra was bestowed. There were many tantric deities, so the tantric deities would be fads. There would be a fad, like some lama would bring a tantric deity from India and would teach this in his temple, and in his temple and all the temples of his tradition, or they'd make temples over the centuries, and these deities would spread. So there were great fads of tantric deities which would sweep Tibet with certain periods. Certain deities were most trendy, and at the time of these Mongols, the latest hot, we could say, quote unquote, the hottest deity was Kalachakra. And so when there were a series of Mongol emperors coming down from Genghis Khan, who were all patrons to the Tibetan lamas, and his grandson, when it came time for him to be in power, that was the time when Kalachakra was coming to the fore, when it was becoming trendy, it was a powerful deity. So that was bestowed, and the grandson was given, he was bestowed the power and the incarnation of Kalachakra. So that grandson of Genghis Khan, he was Kalachakra. Okay, so we'll see the third one now.